what is the first and most aggressive way that you would advise President Trump to make America healthy again? What would be that first step that you think would make the biggest difference that you would advise him?
The one thing that is making America sick is corruption in the regulatory agencies. The agencies that are supposed to be protecting public health are not doing that. Instead, their primary priority is the mercantile and commercial interests of pharmaceutical companies, of big food and big agriculture. And they are utterly corrupt from at least the top part of those agencies, completely corrupt. And President Trump has asked me for help unraveling the corporate capture of those agencies, unraveling this corrupt merger of state and corporate power, and we've already put together a team to move into USDA, to move on day one. And save the soils in our country, and to end these. Almost all of our subsidies are going to corn, soy, and wheat, and these become the feedstock for this. We're producing food that is no longer nutrient dense. It's nutrient anemic, and it's creating. And it is the food that is the cheapest, so it becomes the feedstock for the ultra-processed food industry, and that food is the food, 70% of the food that is paid for by food stamps, so it gets a subsidy, agricultural subsidies, and it gets the food stamp subsidy, $70 billion a year, to poison American poor with. It gets the school lunch program, 70% of that is going to ultra-processed foods. And we are systematically sickening our children. And the greatest asset, the most valuable asset in our country today, if you're an insurance company, if you're part of the medical complex, hospitals, et cetera, if you're a pharmaceutical company, the most valuable asset is a sick child. And that's why our kids are the sickest kids in the history of the world, and the sickest of any country. We have these raft of neurological disorders that I never saw as a kid: ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, sleep disorders, ASD, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, autism. We have autoimmune disease, explosion, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, all these exotic things that didn't exist. Diabetes. When I was a kid, the average pediatrician saw one case of diabetes in his lifetime. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And all the allergic diseases, peanut allergies, food allergies, eczema, asthma, anaphylaxis. Obesity. When my uncle was president, 6% of Americans had chronic disease, and the price for treating chronic disease at that point was $0. Today, 60% of Americans have it, of our kids. And the cost is $4.3 trillion. It's 5 times our military budget. And when I was a kid, my uncle was president, 3.4% of Americans had obesity. Today, close to 70%. And it is destroying our country. We have the lowest fertility rate in the world. 50% of American teens have half the testosterone that they had a generation ago, half the sperm counts they had a generation ago. Girls in our country are reaching puberty at 10 years old to 13 on average. That's 6 years younger than they were a generation ago. And it's the youngest of any country in the world. And this is happening not because Americans suddenly got lazy. It's happening because we are mass poisoning people. Obesity is not genetic. It's not your fault. It's because we are mass poisoning you, and we need to put an end to it. And on day one, we're going to declare an emergency like we did in COVID. But it's going to be a chronic disease emergency, and we're going to get the fluoride out of the water. We're going to get the chemicals out of the food. We're going to get the chemtrails out, the chemicals out of the chemtrails, and there's 1,000 ingredients in our food that are banned in Europe. And we're going to get rid of all those chemicals. And I know how to do it, and